My stepmom demanded I cancel my wedding so my fiancé could marry my stepsister. She claimed I owed her my life for raising me. But my grandma set a trap with fake $15,000 that exposed her lies to the entire family and destroyed them. I'm 25 years old. I work in digital marketing for about 3 years now. And I need to tell this story because I still can't believe that my own mother, well, my stepmother, technically, but the only mother I really knew, asked me to cancel my wedding so my boyfriend could marry my stepsister instead. Yeah, you read that right. And when I say she asked me, it wasn't like a casual suggestion. It was a full-on demand, with the argument that I owed her this for raising me. The thing is that everything exploded like 4 months ago, but the story really starts way earlier, when I was barely 5 years old and came to live with my dad. I don't remember much about my biological mom, to be honest, just blurry images and the general feeling that things weren't right. What I do know, because my dad told me when I was older, is that she neglected me pretty badly. Like she'd leave me alone for days, wouldn't feed me properly, and there were some abuse episodes that I'd rather not detail. Social services intervened when I was like 4.5, and after some time in the system, my dad finally got full custody. He had been fighting for me since they separated, but you know how it is. The system tends to favor mothers even when they shouldn't. So I came to live with him right after I turned 5. And honestly, those first months were weird because he was basically a stranger to me. But he was kind and patient, and little by little I started to feel safe with him. 2 years later, when I was 7, my dad met Donna. She had a daughter, Megan, who at that time was like 5 years old and was already in a wheelchair because of a neurological condition she'd had since birth. I'm not gonna lie, at first I liked Donna. She was caring. She was interested in my homework. She made me breakfast. All those things I hadn't really had before. My dad and her got married when I was 8, and she officially adopted me shortly after because my biological mom had lost all her parental rights by then. I remember I cried in court when the judge said that now Donna was legally my mom, and in that moment they were happy tears because I thought I finally had a real family. You know, complete. Megan and I got along okay, I guess. She always required a lot of attention for obvious reasons, and Donna was constantly worried about her, taking her to therapies and doctors and all that. I understood that Megan needed more care, and it never really bothered me, or at least that's what I thought. Looking back now, I think there was an imbalance there. Like Donna always prioritized Megan in everything. But I justified it because, well, Megan was in a wheelchair and needed help with basic things. I was the older sister, the one who could take care of herself, so it was okay for her to get more attention, or that's what I told myself. Things continued like that for years. I went to school, got good grades, helped around the house, and tried to be the perfect daughter because deep down, I always had that fear that if I wasn't, they'd send me back to the system or something. I know it sounds irrational, but when you've been abandoned as a child, that fear never completely leaves you. You know what I mean? So I was always trying to please everyone, especially Donna, because I wanted to prove that I deserved to be part of the family. When I was in my sophomore year of high school, like at 15, I met Joshua. He was new at school, had just moved from another state because his dad got a job here, and we ended up in the same chemistry class. It wasn't love at first sight or anything like that. We just became friends because he needed help catching up with the curriculum, and I was good at science. We started hanging out to study, then for lunch, and eventually he became my best friend. Joshua was and still is one of those genuinely good people, you know, the kind who really listen when you talk and care about how you feel. With him, I could talk about things I didn't talk about with anyone else, like how weird it sometimes felt to not completely belong anywhere. I brought him home several times during those years, and Megan, who would have been like 13 or 14 then, would stare at him all the time. At first I thought it was just normal curiosity, but over time it became obvious she had a pretty strong crush on him. Joshua was always super nice to her, asked her about her day, helped her reach things that were too high, that kind of stuff. But it was clearly just being polite. Megan, however, saw it as something more, and Donna, instead of helping her understand that Joshua was just my friend and nothing more, kind of fed that fantasy. I remember once I heard Donna telling Megan that Joshua was very nice to her, and that he probably liked her too, and I was like, what? But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause drama. Joshua and I started dating in our senior year of high school. It was weird at first because we'd been friends for so long, but it also felt natural, like it always had to happen. When I told my family, my dad was happy for me, but Donna got tense, and Megan literally locked herself in her room crying for 3 days. Donna told me I should be more considerate of Megan's feelings, that she couldn't have the same opportunities as me, and that the least I could do was not rub my happiness in her face. I felt guilty, obviously, and tried not to talk much about Joshua at home and not bring him over so often. But I also thought, do I have to give up my love life because my sister has an unrequited crush? It didn't make sense, but Donna had that way of making you feel like you were selfish for just existing. Joshua and I went to the same college. We planned everything to be together, and the first 2 years were amazing. But then things got difficult because he was studying engineering and I was studying marketing, and we had crazy schedules and basically never saw each other. We started fighting over silly things. I'd get jealous of his girl classmates. He said I was too demanding. The typical college relationship drama. So in our 3rd year, we decided to break up, and it was devastating, but also maybe it's for the best. We each need space to grow. All that shit you tell yourself to feel better. I spent the next 3 years single, focused on my career, dating other guys occasionally, but nothing serious. I graduated, got my current job, moved to my own apartment, although I still visited my family regularly. Megan by then was 20 years old and was still living at home with Donna and my dad, which made sense given that she needed help with a lot of things. She had gone to college too, mostly online classes, studying graphic design, which was something she could do from home. 2.5 years ago, I ran into Joshua at a coffee shop. Pure coincidence. I was waiting for my order and he walked in and we saw each other and it was seriously? After all this time. We sat down to chat and it was 4 hours of just catching up on our lives, and I realized that all those feelings I thought I'd gotten over were still there. Just buried. He confessed he'd thought about contacting me 1,000 times, but didn't know if I'd want to hear from him, and I told him I'd done exactly the same thing. We started seeing each other again. First as friends, then as something more. And after 6 months, we were officially back together. This time things were different, more mature. We weren't those 18-year-old kids who didn't know how to communicate anymore. Now we were adults with careers and responsibilities and a better idea of what we wanted. Joshua got an amazing job at an engineering firm. I was progressing at my company, and everything felt good, stable. A year after we reconnected, he proposed to me. It was super simple. We were at his apartment watching a movie, and suddenly he paused the TV, turned to me and said he didn't want to spend another day without being sure we were going to be together forever, and he took out the ring. Obviously, I said yes. I was crying and shaking, and it was perfect. I told my family the next day. My dad was super excited. He hugged me and told me Joshua had always seemed like a good guy and he knew we'd be happy. But Donna stayed quiet. And Megan. God. Megan had an anxiety attack right there in the living room. She started hyperventilating and crying, and Donna had to take her to her room. My dad told me not to worry, that Megan just needed time to process the news. But I knew it was more than that. That night, Donna came looking for me and told me that maybe it would be better if I moved out, that my presence was causing Megan a lot of stress, and that since I was going to get married soon anyway, it made sense for me to start my independent life already. She said it all very calmly, very reasonably, but the message was clear. Leave. So I left. Joshua and I found an apartment, together, and we started planning the wedding. Nothing super elaborate, 150 guests, ceremony at a nice church, reception at an event hall. We sent out invitations 3 months ahead. Everything was going according to plan. I still visited my dad occasionally, but always when Donna and Megan weren't there, because things had gotten tense, and frankly, I didn't have the energy to deal with the drama. 2 days before the wedding, 2 days, Donna showed up at my apartment. Joshua wasn't there. He'd gone out with his friends for his bachelor party, and I was packing the last things because we were going to go to a hotel that night to be close to the wedding venue. When I opened the door and saw Donna standing there, I knew something was wrong. She never came to my apartment. Never. She told me she needed to talk to me, that it was important, and I let her in because, well, technically she was my mom, and I thought maybe she was coming to make peace before the wedding or something. She sat on the couch and got straight to the point. She told me she'd been thinking a lot about the situation, about Megan, and about Joshua, and about me, and that she'd come to a conclusion. Megan loved Joshua, had loved him for years, and the fact that he was going to marry me was destroying her. I started to say I was sorry, but that I couldn't control my sister's feelings. And Donna interrupted me. She said no, that I didn't understand, that she didn't just want me to be more sensitive about it. She wanted me to cancel the wedding, to tell Joshua that I'd made a mistake, that I wasn't ready, whatever. And then she wanted me to convince Joshua to give Megan a chance, to date her, to really get to know her, and eventually to marry her instead of me. I sat there trying to process what I'd just heard. Seriously? Was she really asking me to give up the love of my life so my stepsister could have him? I started laughing because I thought it was a joke. Like a weird test or I don't know what, but Donna wasn't laughing. She was completely serious. I told her she was crazy, that there was no way I was going to do that. And she got very cold. She told me that I owed her this, that she had picked me up when nobody else wanted me, that she'd given me a home, a family, a better life than I would have had with my biological mom or in the system. She said that Megan was her biological daughter, her blood, and that she had fewer opportunities in life because of her condition, while I'd had everything. The least I could do, according to her, was this: give Megan this opportunity. Sacrifice myself for my sister, the way Donna had sacrificed herself for me all my life. I couldn't believe it. I yelled at her to leave, that she was sick in the head if she thought I was going to do something like that. I told her that Joshua wasn't property that could be transferred, that he was a person who loved me, that we'd built a relationship based on years of history and real love, not a one-sided childhood crush. Donna got up, and before leaving, she told me I was going to regret this decision, that I was being selfish and ungrateful, and that when Megan ended up alone and sad for the rest of her life, it was going to be my fault. I literally pushed her toward the door and locked it when she left. I stood there shaking. I don't know if from rage or shock or what. When Joshua got home like 2 hours later, I told him everything. He went pale, couldn't believe someone would actually ask for something like that. He hugged me and told me that no matter what Donna said, we were getting married in 2 days and nobody was going to ruin that. But I couldn't stop thinking about the whole thing. What if Donna made a scene at the wedding? What if she brought Megan and they caused a scene? I couldn't risk them ruining the day. So, after like 3 hours of crying and talking, Joshua and I decided to postpone the wedding. Just temporarily, we said, until things calmed down. We called the planner, canceled everything, lost a bunch of deposits, and sent a message to all the guests saying a family emergency had come up and we'd reschedule soon. My dad called me the next day asking what had happened. I told him I needed to talk to him in person. But when I got to the house, Donna was already there, filling his head with lies. According to her, I had invited her to my apartment to tell her I didn't want Megan to come to the wedding because her wheelchair was going to ruin the photos. She said, I'd said horrible things about Megan, that I'd said she was a burden and that I didn't understand why they still had to take care of her when she was already an adult. None of that was true, obviously, but my dad believed her. When I tried to explain what really happened, he interrupted me and told me he was disappointed in me, that he hadn't raised such a cruel person, and that until I apologized to Donna and Megan and showed I could be a better sister, he didn't want to see me. I left that house crying so hard I could barely see to drive. Joshua was waiting for me in his car outside because he knew things were going to get ugly, and he took me back to his house. That night I talked to his mom, who had always been super caring with me, and I told her everything. She was horrified by what Donna had done and told me that of course I could stay with them as long as I needed. I ended up staying at Joshua's house permanently, which was the plan eventually anyway. It just happened sooner than we expected. 2 weeks after all that mess, my dad made a Facebook post. A long and dramatic post about how he'd discovered his daughter was a horrible person who discriminated against people with disabilities and that he was ashamed to call me his family. He didn't mention my name directly, but everyone knew who he was talking about. The comments were a disaster. People I knew saying things like, I always knew something was wrong with her, or, poor Megan, what a terrible sister. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with messages from aunts, cousins, family friends, all asking what had happened or directly accusing me of being a horrible person. Some of my own friends stopped talking to me without even asking for my side of the story. I was devastated. Joshua was furious, wanted to go confront my dad and Donna, but I told him there was no point, that clearly they'd decided to believe what they wanted to believe. I spent like 3 weeks basically locked in the house, not wanting to see anyone, not even wanting to go out because I was afraid of running into someone who'd seen that post. But then my maternal grandmother, my biological mom's mom, called me. She lived in a house in the country like 2 hours away, and I didn't see her very often, but she'd always been caring with me in her own way. She told me she'd heard rumors about what was happening and that she wanted to hear my version of the story. I went to visit her that weekend, and I told her everything from the beginning. My grandma listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she told me she believed me. She said she'd met Donna at some family gatherings over the years and had always found her manipulative and controlling, and that what I was telling her made sense. She asked me what I was going to do, and honestly, I had no idea. I felt trapped. Like if I tried to defend myself publicly, I was going to come across as attacking a person with a disability. But if I didn't say anything, everyone was going to keep thinking I was a horrible person. My grandma thought for a while and then said she had a plan. She asked me if Joshua and I still wanted to get married, and I told her yes, of course. We just didn't know when because all this drama had ruined our plans. She told me to get married at her house, in her garden, that she'd take care of everything, that we just needed to bring the officiant and some witnesses. Joshua and I talked that night and decided to do it. 2 week later, we got married in a small ceremony at my grandma's house, with her local pastor officiating, and Joshua's parents and 2 of our closest friends as witnesses. It wasn't the wedding we'd planned, but it was perfect in its own way, intimate and sincere and full of people who really loved us. But that was just the first step of my grandma's plan. The second part was more complicated. Turns out my grandma had some money saved up, not a fortune but enough to get attention, and she decided to use it as bait. She told my dad she was updating her will and that she wanted to meet with the whole family to discuss how she was going to divide her inheritance. She made it sound urgent and important, and my dad, who isn't bad but is interested in money more than he should be, agreed to organize a meeting. My grandma specifically told him that Donna also had to be present. On the day of the meeting, my grandma arrived at my dad's house with a folder of fake documents she'd made just for the occasion. I was hiding at Joshua's house, nervous and waiting for news, because the plan was for my grandma to record the entire conversation without Donna knowing. My dad was being nice to my grandma, obviously, because he thought he was going to get some money out of this. Donna was also there, being charming like always when she wanted to impress someone. Megan was in her room, wasn't part of the meeting. My grandma started by saying she wanted to understand what had really happened between her granddaughter and the rest of the family, because she'd heard 2 very different versions and needed clarity before making decisions about her will. My dad started repeating the story Donna had told him about how I'd said horrible things about Megan, but my grandma interrupted him and asked Donna directly if she had been present when I supposedly said those things. Donna, confident and unsuspecting, confirmed that yes, she'd been there and that it had been horrible to hear her adoptive daughter talk like that about her sister. Then, my grandma changed tactics. She told Donna she understood it must have been difficult for her to see her 2 daughters competing for the same man, and that surely she'd wanted to help Megan somehow. She asked her if she hadn't considered, maybe, looking for another way to help Megan find love instead of trying to take her sister's boyfriend away, and that's where Donna fell into the trap. She started defending herself, saying she wasn't trying to take anything from anyone, that she'd only asked her daughter to consider her sister's feelings, to make a small sacrifice given everything the family had done for her. My grandma kept pressing, asking for details, and Donna, thinking she had an ally, started telling more. She confessed that yes, she had asked her daughter to cancel the wedding, that she'd told her to convince Joshua to give Megan a chance. She justified everything saying that Megan had fewer opportunities in life, that she deserved to be happy, and that her other daughter had already had enough luck in life and could find someone else. She said she thought her daughter would understand, that she'd be grateful for everything they'd done for her and would want to do something good for her sister in return. She said all this with my dad sitting 3 meters away, in the kitchen making coffee, and my grandma told me later that she knew he was listening because she could see his shadow from where she was sitting. When Donna finished her monologue, my grandma asked her directly if she'd made up the story about the cruel things I supposedly said. There was a long silence, and then Donna admitted that yes, she'd exaggerated a bit, but that she'd done it because my dad would never have understood if she told him the truth, that he would have defended his biological daughter over Megan. At that moment, my dad came out of the kitchen. My grandma said the look on his face when he looked at Donna was pure betrayal and disappointment. What followed was a total disaster. My dad started yelling at Donna about how she could have lied about something like that, that she'd destroyed his relationship with his daughter over a lie. Donna tried to defend herself, saying she'd done it for Megan, that any mother would do the same for her daughter, but my dad didn't want to hear any of it. He told her to get out of the house, to take Megan with her, and that he didn't want to see her again. Donna started crying, begging, but my dad called the police when she wouldn't leave. Eventually, she took Megan and they went to stay with her sister, from what I found out later. My dad called me that same night. He was crying. I don't think I'd ever heard him cry in my life. He apologized like 1,000 times, said he'd been an idiot, that he should have trusted me, that he'd let Donna manipulate him, and that he'd understand if I never forgave him. I told him I needed time to process everything, but that I loved him, and that eventually we were going to be okay. Joshua and I went to see him the following week, and we had a long conversation about everything. He met Joshua officially as my husband. Because yes, in all that drama, I forgot to mention we'd gotten married, and I told him I wanted to rebuild our relationship, but that I had to be honest about how much it had hurt me, that he believed a lie about me so easily. Now, 4 months later, my dad and Donna are officially divorced. The process was quick, because honestly, my dad wanted to end everything as soon as possible. Donna took her share of the assets and moved to another state with Megan. She's never apologized to me, and I don't think she ever will. The last time my dad spoke with her, she told him she didn't regret anything, that she'd only done what any mother would do for her daughter, and that if she had to lie and manipulate to give Megan a chance to be happy, so be it. It's sick, honestly, but I guess that's who she is. My dad and I are doing well. We see each other every 2 weeks for dinner, and he's trying to make up for everything that happened. I told him he doesn't need to make up for anything, that I just need him to trust me and for us to be okay, and he's doing his best. Joshua and him get along great. They do things together like watch football on Sundays, and my dad always tells me how happy he is that I found someone so good. As for Megan, I haven't heard anything from her directly. I know from mutual family members that she's working as a freelance graphic designer from wherever she's living now, and that apparently she's in therapy, which I hope helps her. I don't wish her anything bad, seriously, but I also can't say I miss her. The whole situation was so twisted that it's hard to feel anything beyond relief that she's no longer part of my daily life. My grandma became my favorite person in all this, obviously. We visit her often, Joshua and I, and she laughs, saying she should have been a detective instead of an elementary school teacher. She says it was worth using her savings as bait, if that meant exposing the truth and helping her granddaughter. We offered to give her back the money she spent helping us, but she refused. Said, "What's the point of having money if you can't use it to help the people you love?" Joshua and I are good. More than good. We talk sometimes about having a real wedding, like renewing vows or something. But honestly, the ceremony we had at my grandma's house feels more meaningful than any elaborate wedding we could have had. It was in the middle of the worst time of our lives, and we still chose to commit to each other, and that says more than any expensive party with 200 guests. What strikes me most about all this is how Donna really thought she had the right to ask me for something like that. Like, in her head, the fact that she'd adopted and raised me meant I literally owed her my life, including my happiness. And the saddest part is that Megan probably had no idea what her mom was doing, or at least not the full extent. Donna used her as an excuse for her manipulative behavior, and now Megan has to live with the fact that her mom destroyed our family trying to get her a husband who was never going to love her that way. It's sad for everyone. Honestly. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd agreed to what Donna wanted. Did she really think Joshua was going to trade me for Megan just because I asked him to? Did she believe he was going to fall in love with my sister, and we were all going to live happily ever after with that arrangement? It doesn't make sense when you think about it rationally, but I guess Donna wasn't thinking rationally. She was so desperate to make her biological daughter happy that she lost all perspective of what was right or wrong. Last week, my dad asked me if I was ever going to forgive Donna. I told him honestly that I didn't know. It's not that I'm actively holding a grudge, it's just that I can't forget how she was willing to destroy my life for what she wanted. She asked me to sacrifice my marriage, she lied about me publicly, she almost ruined my relationship with my dad, and she didn't even apologize after the truth came out. How do you forgive something like that? My dad said he understood, and that he didn't know if he'd ever be able to forgive her for using him that way either. I guess the moral of all this, if there is one, is that family doesn't give you automatic rights to other people's lives. Donna may have raised me and given me a home, and I'll always be grateful for that. But that doesn't mean I owe her literally everything, especially not my future and my happiness. And I also learned that second chances are important. Joshua and I broke up once and found our way back to each other, and that made us stronger. My dad made a huge mistake believing Donna over me, but he's doing the work to fix it, and that counts for something. Now I'm focused on building my own family with Joshua. We're talking about starting to look for a house soon, maybe having kids in a few years, and just living our life without drama. My grandma says I'm going to be an incredible mother when the time comes, because I know what it's like not to have a good mother, and that's why I'm going to work extra hard to be one. I hope she's right. For now, I'm happy with where I am, with who I'm with, and with the fact that the truth finally came out. Even if it took an elaborate plan from my grandma and a trap worthy of a movie for it to happen, it was worth every second of anxiety and stress, because now I can live my life without that cloud of lies and manipulation over me, and that's something I'm never going to take for granted.